Hi, welcome to RCAM. I'm your host, Ryan, and thank you for tuning in today. So, I have repositioned my mic. So, if there are any issues, any hiccups, please, if you were in the comments, let me know. I would love to make sure that I'm getting this right. And, all right. So, today we are going to be discussing the Call Her Degenerate podcast. Yep. And we will be discussing Kamala Harris's addition to that podcast during a time of crisis for our friends over in North Carolina who are still reeling from one of the most devastating hurricanes the state has ever faced. So we'll be talking about that. So we will also be discussing a revelation that Candace Owens revealed about the corn industry. We'll talk a little bit about that, and we will also be discussing Kanye West's divorce. I mean, I for one am shocked that Kanye West and the wife he was parading around half naked are divorced. So we'll talk about that. We'll also talk about the Christian vote, because this is a topic of conversation that we just continue to have, and we will also talk about Toyota backing away from their DEI initiatives. So that's interesting. So we got a lot to talk about today. But if you like this content, please like, share, subscribe, do all those things that helps me grow. And I definitely appreciate it. And by the way, for those of you who are new followers, welcome. Thank you for subscribing to the channel. Thank you for following me. Thank you for your feedback. Actually, that's one of the reasons I repositioned my mic. So hopefully that's a little bit better. And yeah, I appreciate you guys. We're growing slowly, but we are growing, which is cool. And one of the funny things too about this is that uh randomly at random times these videos will start getting views. So I wonder if YouTube changed something in their algorithm that's getting us a little bit more visibility. I don't know, but it's cool, and I am here for it. So thank you guys. Okay, let's get into this. So Call Her Daddy is a very popular podcast, and it's this is the description of it, okay? So this is the most listened to podcast by women, and it's hosted by Alex Cooper, and it says Cooper cuts through the BS with topics and guests asking burning questions you want answers to. There will be laughter, there will be tears, there will be everything in between. And basically it's just a degenerate sex podcast. That's what it is, all right? So nothing deep. You're not going to get some of the rich dialogue that you see from Joe Rogan. It's vapid, low IQ, degenerate garbage. And you don't believe me? Let's just go to her podcast site, her Spotify, and just look at the titles of some of her content. And you tell me if this sounds like oh yeah, that's a rich conversation that needs to be had. You tell me, all right? So, Vice President Kamala Harris, and we'll talk more about her joining the podcast. But so this one, don't call me body positive. Don't know what that's about. Oh, this one, BJ's, hall passes, and frat daddies. Enlightening stuff here. Is he the one? Cheating 101. Cheating 101. Sounds like, I don't know if that's for or against it, but not that great. Older, hotter, wiser. Heidi Klum. I didn't effing do it. He cheated. Do I leave? A proud basic B. My revenge porn experience. Oh, Katy Perry, narcissist, BJs, and red flags. I'm not even going to read that one. Disgusting. So yeah, I got Catfish in Paris, Miley Cyrus. We all know she has deeply insightful commentary. Oh, this one, threesomes, Facetunes, and Ozempic. So yeah, great stuff from the Call Me Daddy podcast. I'm sure this is all deeply interesting, and it's kind of disturbing to me that this woman has mainly a female audience, and we'll talk about the demographics graphics of that in just a bit. But first, let's read from this article by the Daily Beast. Call Her Daddy faces backlash over propaganda Harris interview. Yes, that's exactly what it was. Alex Cooper, host of the Call Her Daddy podcast, is being called out by angry fans over her interview with Vice President Kamala Harris. Cooper faced backlash on social media with regular listeners of the podcast, known for its frank discussions about sexuality and advice for women, accusing her of peddling propaganda for the Democratic Party nominee. Oh, wow. Interesting. Coming from the Daily Beast. Harris is also getting flack for dodging mainstream media interviews and hardball questions, and instead of plumping for cozy charts with softball questions from safe interviews. Yep. Some fans left remarks on the show's Instagram account congratulating Cooper for the coup in getting the Democratic Party White House hopeful onto the podcast, rated second in popularity only to Joe Rogan's show in the United States. But others said they would never listen again and asked when Cooper would be interviewing Donald. Never. He's not. That would not happen. But what Trump should do, what would actually be beneficial for Donald Trump, is for him to go on the Joe Rogan podcast. I know he didn't have kind words to say about Joe Rogan, but it would be beneficial to him to actually go on that show. I think I'm going to like this mic placement because it's not within distance of my hands. And that's usually a problem. See, I originally had kept it on the desk, but I would touch that. I'm just too, what I need is like one of those mics that go on your ear that you can just move around in and I could talk freely. Because with the mic position the way it is, I have to kind of stay in one spot. And that's so hard for me. I'm animated. I move around. I talk. And I talk with my hands a lot. This is a New York thing. That's what we do. Anyway. All right. So that's a little bit about that. So the interview avoided the podcast's usual raunchy content, sticking largely to go to Harris campaign talking points and steering clear of potential lightning rod topics such as illegal immigration. Can't be talking about that. And the Biden administration's response to Hurricane Helene, which is something that whether they want to avoid it or not is unavoidable. Because one of the big things leading up to this podcast was the fact that she was doing it while people were still reeling from Hurricane Helene. So that's the core problem here. It's not just that this is a degenerate podcast. It is, but it was happening during a time of crisis for people. So this is the so.
Do you know what a X or Y or Z is of a part of our, and they.
What is going on?
Daddy gang, to put it in our TikTok terms. I have seen girls on the street walk up to men and be like, do you know where a tampon goes? Do you know how many tampons we use? Do you even know how, do you know what a X or Y or Z is of a part of our, and they don't know the answer.
I was the first vice president or president to ever in office go to a reproductive health care clinic.
So they're talking about tampons, and Kamala Harris is bragging about how she's the first president to go to a women's reproductive health care clinic while this is happening.
People have lost everything. There's nothing here.
We're 8 days, 9 days post-hurricane, and that was the first FEMA drop I've seen here in the Swannanoa area. I haven't seen a FEMA agent yet. This is all local volunteers from abroad, as far as Washington State, are coming out here to help and pick up the slack that's been left behind from our government.
You know, and President Trump, he's not even in office, but yet he's still getting a Starlink. He's doing his best. He's shaking all the trees.
If we're talking about federal assistance, I didn't see my first FEMA truck until, what is today, Saturday? I didn't see my first FEMA truck until Thursday afternoon, Thursday evening. And all I saw was a FEMA truck with a satellite on it, parked in a corner underneath some shade trees in a parking lot with no signage, no information. I don't know why they're there.
The word from the people that we talk to, and they say, when we say, who else has been here, can we help, maybe we can work together. they're like, you're the first ones, or the only other people that have helped us is another private, citizens that are just basically our neighbors or our friends trying to help us. They hadn't seen anyone from the federal government yet.
When our vice president talks on the TV about $750 for FEMA, yeah, that's not good.
The only information that I've gotten about FEMA actions on the ground has been an attempt to sort of stop some of the volunteer efforts, especially, there's a medical support trailer that's here by volunteers. They have doctors and registered nurses. They're all licensed doctors and registered nurses. They were told they couldn't do what they were doing because it was not being federally controlled or something along those lines.
I've seen one helo come in, and I was told that was FEMA, and that was it.
Today was the first FEMA delivery that I've seen or I've heard of in the entire region.
So nice. They're talking about tampons and,
I don't know
Kamala
the answer.
Harris going into...
I was the first vice president or president to
Sorry, guys. I don't know why it keeps clicking.
ever in
Daddy gang to
office.
All right. I'm closing out of that tab. Woo! That was crazy. All right. So, yeah, they're talking about nonsense while these people are reeling. They're reeling, and they're busy wasting time. Wondering why men don't ask them about, don't know how many tampons. We don't care. First of all, like, what? We don't care about that. I don't know how. Like, even my own wife, I'm married to her. I don't know that. I don't ask about it. That's her private business. She does her thing, and that's that. We don't need to talk about this. It's like if I were well, why don't you know how many rolls of or sheets of toilet paper I need to wipe my, like, it doesn't make any sense. I don't know why that's pertinent information. So real stupid stuff here, but that's not the worst of it. So Kamala ultimately sat down for this interview, and we're just going to talk about this key component because obviously the my body my choice thing comes up, and they had this real interesting insight.
I want to pose this question more to you and the Daddy Gang, but one of the biggest conversations in this year's election revolves around a woman's body.
Yep.
I want to take a moment, and can we try to think of any law that gives the government the power to make a decision?
I know what you're going to ask.
I know what you're going to ask because you were fed the questions. Of course you know what she's going to ask. You wouldn't be asking any unscripted questions. You know exactly what she's going to ask. Just stop playing like this is the first time you heard the question. You know what she's going to ask because you were given the questions before you sat down for the interview, or you wouldn't be sitting down for the interview.
About a man's body. Let's
No.
Is there any law?
No.
No laws, huh?
No.
No.
It's no.
I want to pose.
No laws, huh? Very interesting that they say there are no laws because there are laws. I don't know if you guys recall. Actually, Clay Harris, I believe, mentioned it. Yes, he does. Kamala Harris and the Call Her Daddy chick attempt to come up with any governmental laws that control a man's body. Both say there isn't one, then laugh. The correct answer is yes, the draft, which costs over 1 million male lives in U.S. history. Yeah, so that's one law for sure. Also, Matt Walsh actually had a pretty interesting insight. The male babies that you're allowed to murder in the womb without fear of punishment. Yep. So there's 2 right off the bat that control men's bodies. So that didn't come to mind. Also, I do find it rich that these people are making this argument when they are also some of the same people that will insist that trans women are women, that men masquerading as women are women. So suddenly we know what a woman is now. Suddenly we have this insight as to what makes a woman. specifically when it comes to abortion. So that's very frustrating. Very, very frustrating, man. That they do this, and it really disturbs me. Another issue that I do want to spend a little bit of time talking about is the fact that they don't all mention that the right, to an abortion, their right to do what they want to do with their own body. Oh, another thing I just remembered too. Another law that was forced on men against their will was the stupid COVID vaccines. Now, yes, that affected women, but it also affected men. The government robbed men of their autonomy and forced them to take an experimental vaccine that ultimately did nothing and cost lots of people their job when they refused. So don't give me this nonsense. And also, we are under the presumption that all laws preventing us from doing whatever we want with our bodies are immoral. They're not, actually. We have laws, like if we saw somebody attempting to cut their limbs off, we would call the police on them and they would get put in like an insane asylum or something because we recognize them as being mentally disturbed. We have laws that, we also have laws that prevent people from taking their lives. So you can't do anything that you want with your own body as much as you'd like to. You can't. And some of these, I wish we had more laws actually controlling people's bodies, all people. These people that are tatted from the top of their head to the soles of their feet and their eyes are tatted black, that would be illegal if I had my way. Like there are some limitations that should be put on what we can do with our body, just because it's not a good thing to do, very simply. So, but the question isn't about your body ultimately, it's about the body residing within your body, a separate body with its own separate set of DNA, with its own lungs, its own eyes, its own kidneys, its own organs, a separate human being entirely. That's what we are talking about. And we are saying that you don't have the right over that body. Your right over that body is non-existent. That is a separate human being with their own distinct rights. But you guys like to pretend that it is your body, but it's not. You don't have two eyes. You don't have two hearts. You don't have two reproductive systems. This is a developing human being at the earliest stages of conception or a pregnancy, and they should be treated with dignity, value, and worth. And it's something that they don't recognize. So yeah, Kamala Harris took the time to come on this podcast. And one of the things that I also wanted to address just about the podcast overall is the massive influence this podcast actually has. So we're going to go over some stats real quick. So this is from Victor Shy. I really need everyone to understand how big Call Her Daddy Alex Cooper is. The second most popular podcast in the world, 5+ million downloads a week. That's insane. Most listened to podcasts among women ages 18 through 24 and reaches lots of people who are not political. So yes, this matters and is huge. So that's one person, and I thought this person had, I think, some important insights. So this is from Elena Moore. For those asking why Harris went on Call Her Daddy, NPR obtained audience data on the show from Edison Research. 70% women, 76 under 35, 93% under 45, 48% Democrat, 24% Republican, 20 independent, 34 live in the South, 24 West, 22% Northeast, 20% Midwest. Yeah, so they're gunning for these Gen Z and millennial women. They're trying to grab a hold of their votes. And I think that's really important and why she's ultimately trying to do this. She's trying to pander to these people to get votes. That's the real reason that this was more valuable to her and more important to her than helping Hurricane. I thought Allie Beth Stuckey also had some good insights. because these are the ads the Democrats are running. So I want Americans and families to be able to not just get by, but be able to get ahead, to thrive. And yeah, you just see in this frame the focus is the women, and the husband, I'm presuming, is cut out. He's not important because this is the focus. They are trying to reach white suburban moms and get their vote. They are counting on people who are disenfranchised with Trump. So I've seen many people express shock at the lack of diversity in a Dem campaign ad, but if you have been paying attention, this is who they've been gunning for since day one. Kamala knows she doesn't need to fight for the black vote. That's true. And she'll lose most white males. Also true. She wants the white suburban mom. Yeah. She'll get many of them by, one, not being Trump, and two, leveraging toxic empathy to manipulate them into believing that voting for her is preserving miscarriage care and loving the least of these. Trump can't win by ardently pro-choice women, so he could stop trying, but he can solidify more suburban women's votes by being the candidate promising to make America the healthiest, safest, and most prosperous country in the world to raise kids. Kamala is a chaos candidate. Trump is the stability candidate. He should lean into that. Yeah, correct. He is the stability candidate. But we'll talk a little bit about Trump because maybe we'll just jump to this real quick because this is a mistake that Trump keeps making. And since we're on the subject, we might as well just cover this real quick. So this is from Charlie Kirk. And he says, according to new survey data by George Barna, only 51% of people of faith, I hate that terminology, by the way, believers is the right term, plan to vote this November. Translation, 41 million born-again Christians will not vote. 30 million mainline Christians will not vote. This is a 5-alarm fire. The local church must be activated and explain why voting is critical, and national leaders must not take this for granted in key issues. We cannot expect President Trump to have a more Christian ethos if the church refuses to vote. We cannot expect President Trump to be more pro-life if our own people don't back him at the ballot box. The local church must be activated. Christians, you are about to hand the White House to Kamala Harris. This is the part that I actually find infuriating. Christians are going to hand the election to Kamala Harris? You're blaming us for disaffecting our vote? You're blaming us for your campaign becoming pro-choice? You're blaming us for Melania Trump releasing a book, a memoir, talking about how she's pro-choice? You're blaming us? And we need to compromise when you're busy pandering to pro-choicers? Get the hell out of here. No way. No, you need to actually work for the Christian vote and stop taking it for granted. He had that first part right, but I know why. To explain why national leaders must not take this group. I know why. But they are taking us for granted. And the Trump campaign isn't doing anything to win the pro-life vote. They're just trying to appease abortionists who don't actually care about whose votes they're not going to get. And it's a ridiculous failing tactic that, yeah, is having impact. So maybe they'll start to wake up and maybe they'll start to think to themselves, hey, maybe, just maybe, we shouldn't be alienating our core voting demographic. Maybe, just maybe, we should be sharing a message of life. Just maybe we should stand up for the most vulnerable. Maybe we shouldn't take Christians for granted and think they're going to tolerate evil. Because I'm not going to. You know, it's been pointed out before that Democrats have no problem pandering to their base, and I don't want to be pandered to, by the way, but they have no problem appealing to their base and entailing a message to their base. But Republicans, for some reason, this is lost on them. They aren't trying to win the pro-life vote. They aren't trying to win the male vote. They're trying to be this big tent party, and it's costing them votes. They're trying to get the votes from people that just won't vote for them. And then they're going to blame Christians when they've been kicking us in the face at every opportunity. No, give us a reason to vote for you. I want to vote. I want to vote for Trump. Me, personally, I want to. I want to find a reason. But right now, he's not giving me a solid one. I just see leftist light right now. And the only thing that makes me consider voting for him is that I know it'd be worse under Kamala. But that's not the greatest reason to galvanize voters. Well, he's not as bad as Kamala. Good sell. Not. So obviously, yes, I find that very frustrating that they take the pro-life vote for granted and that they aren't even trying. And it's very frustrating. And if they don't rethink this, they're going to end up losing the election. And they're going to end up losing the votes. And they can blame us all they want. But they're the people that have wasted their time pandering to people that want to murder their own babies. So, yeah, there's that. Okay. All right. So that was a little bit of a derail. We're going to back up to this Call Her Daddy section. All right. So in addition to Call Her Daddy, appealing to, white women, they're also, though, just a very degenerate podcast. And this is the podcast that Kamala Harris decided to align herself with, which is wild to me. Like, this filth. I mean, look at this one. Meeting my husband's hall pass. I can't even this one. I was going to play these clips, but they're too disgusting. Like, I cannot bring myself to play them. They're that gross. Yeah, here they talk about sex positions, and she even like mounts up as if she's doing like what is that? And people watch this and they're entertained by it? You think that's funny? It's disgusting. And it's more disgusting because it's women doing it, acting like degenerate animals. Just unbelievable. So yeah, this stuff is just gnarly, man. I can't even play it. I can't even play it because it's just that disturbing. And I'm almost confident it would get flagged just because of the nature of the content. But yeah, it's sick, man. So yeah, this is the podcast that she decided to show up to while people are reeling from hurricanes. A podcast that talks about degenerate topics like cheating on your spouses, getting hall passes, the Pony Express, polygamy, and all sorts of degeneracy. And yeah, it's just that's it. This is it. This is what the Democratic Party embodies. These are the type of people that they're trying to galvanize to vote, and it just makes your head spin. And then two, you get women like this that encourage behavior like this.
Here's what your body count says about you. Absolutely fucking nothing. We have really got to stop with all of the shame, blame, and misogyny that is going around in the dating world right now. I can say personally, yeah, I put my hoe hat up a long time ago. I slept around because I used my body to connect with people. That doesn't mean that I'm a bad person. And that doesn't mean that just because I have a body.
Yes, it does. It actually does mean that you're a bad person. Sorry. Hate to break it to you, but it does actually mean that you're a bad person. Sleeping around, engaging in fornication, is actually kind of, degenerate and evil. It's not a good thing. That's not a good thing. That's not something moral that we want to teach our children. Oh, honey, by the way, you need when you get to high school, it's okay to have a hoe phase. Totally normal thing. In fact, healthy. Even. I mean, that's what they are saying, which is crazy.
Body count from when I lived in New York, that I should also be judged now because somebody is insecure or feels insecure because of the fact that I had a past. So if somebody's asking you what your body count is and it makes you uncomfortable, then set that boundary and let them know, hey, there's a lot more to me than how many people I've been with. And if that's your focus, I don't know that we're going to be a match.
Look, I'm not denying that there's not a lot more to these people than their body count, but it's an extremely important thing when somebody is deciding to, commit to a relationship with somebody, because that actually has negative impacts on the relationship. It does. Um, and these women expect to be able to, and this is one of the things that I do think the red pill gets right. They think they can have these hoe phases and they can sleep around and that it will come without consequence. But there are always consequences for our sin. And there are some consequences that you can't run from. Now, hopefully for this woman, well, no, it's already out there. But there are women that are doing this stuff on OnlyFans, and that's going to come back to haunt them too. Now, I am all for, by the way, in case I have any Christian brothers or sisters here that are like, oh, that's judgmental, that's mean. Like, I do think she can receive forgiveness, obviously, but that still doesn't erase her past, maybe in the eyes of God, but your average person does not have to accept that. Now, if you have a man that's willing to look past it, that's fine. Kudos to him. But most men won't, and that's reality. Most men will be bothered by women with high body counts. Most men would prefer a virgin wife, actually. So maybe we should be encouraging our daughters to be moral human beings, to have some self-control and not act like dogs. And I have the same expectation for men too. So don't think this is just geared toward women. I don't like when men act like dogs either. It's pathetic. Oh, we had Pearl Davis recently talking about alpha males and how they can do whatever they want. And, like, if that's what it means to be alpha, that's just pathetic to me. An alpha, you do whatever you want, so you're alpha, including cheating on your spouse? No, that's childish. That's immature. That's something hormonal teenagers do. Alpha, get the hell out of here. That's not alpha. Jesus Christ, that's alpha. Laying your life down for the good of other people. Yeah, denying yourself daily, serving a higher purpose, a higher calling, giving your life for those around you. That's strength. That is true strength. And a strength that the red pill or these feminists have no idea about. And that it could actually radically transform their lives. So, yeah. So the Call Her Daddy podcast encourages women like this, and then also nonsense like this.
I think I like this little life.
When you're seeing your girlfriend and boyfriend together brings you joy, not jealousy.
This little life.
So this is another thing that's being normalized, and women like Alex Cooper are normalizing polygamy or polyamory, whatever they're calling it nowadays. They are. And it's just more signs of the times that we are living in. It's really disturbing. And, if someone had said this, and I actually think this is a good litmus test for getting involved with a woman. If you're on the dating market right now, you should ask the person you're dating if they listen to that podcast. Might be a good way to eliminate them from the dating pool, because it shows how shallow, hollow, and vapid they actually are. That they're listening to crap like that. All right. Next story. All right, we're gonna play a real quick clip of Candace Owens because she makes this revelation about the porn industry that I think is really eye opening, and it's something that I don't know if any of you have thought about, but I do hope you consider what she says here. So we're just gonna video.
All right, so here's my conspiracy theory, like, another one. I think porn websites have been purposefully created as tools of entrapment. Like, I think they are creating an entire log of who everybody is. In the event that somebody becomes powerful in their life, then they have all of these porn websites that you visited. I truly think this, especially people who think their data is safe and they're constantly online. You can see how these websites like Pornhub are encouraging people to look at more frequent and also more disturbing types of porn. Like, essentially, they exist to pervert your tastes. And then I think people become more and more perverted. They hit weird links. And then in the background, you have people that are collecting that data so that if you ever make it in life, they can go, oh, but we caught you looking at this kind of porn. Now we control you. No matter what you think, I think we can all acknowledge now that pornography is a weapon of mass spiritual and political control. I don't care. Everyone got mad at me when I said months ago, ban porn. That's what I believe. It should be banned. And I believe that because I've looked into the history of it. Here's a
So yeah, I couldn't agree with her more. Honestly, it's brilliant for them to do that because they can get these porn addicts by the balls, especially these people that are looking at real degenerate stuff, and use it to blackmail them. You know, that's brilliant. They go, hey, oh, you're famous now. It'd be a shame if this video of you watching furries got out, or this video of you watching, trans women got out, and then they can basically get you to do whatever you want. So if you're still watching this crap, it's time to stop. It is time to stop. Not just because it could possibly be used to entrap you, but because it's degenerate and evil, and it's fueling an industry that is exploiting people and causing the collapse of civilization as we know it. And it's also perverting your minds and your tastes. It is altering the way that you think. I often think of, because like I'll be real and transparent. I have watched porn in the past, and I no longer do. And it is one of those things that I think about. I think, what would my image of sex be if I had never watched that crap to begin with? How would I look at relationships with women differently? With my own wife differently, if I had never saw that to begin with. Because at a young age, I think I saw pornography as early as like 8 or 9. And if I had never saw that, what would my perception of women be? It alters your perception. It alters your expectations. It perverts you. Now, thank God, like I'm free from that. I don't struggle with that anymore, and thank God it didn't impact my marriage. But it's one of those things that it can really screw up your perception of women. And I just think, how would we look at women if we were untainted? Yeah, and I'm also reminded too, they recently introduced Starlink to a remote tribe in the Amazon. And shortly after they introduced Starlink and they got these people set up, connected to the internet, suddenly, the young men were addicted to pornography. And suddenly their behaviors toward women started to change. It literally changed their perception. And I just think of the countless men that are addicted to this crap. And I just think, like, how is it impacting their relationships with women? How is it impacting their expectations for sex? How is it impacting their confidence to engage with women? and all it's doing is perverting them. And it's just an extremely pathetic thing to do. You want to know what really changed my mind about this and what really helped me? Actually, shame. Shame is one of those things that worked. But I remember Pastor Mark Driscoll saying this. He said this. He was talking about pornography, and he said, "You can't storm the gates of hell with a bottle of lotion in your hand and your pants around your ankle." It's funny, but it's also very serious. I mean, yeah, you can't. How effective are you going to be for the kingdom if you can't even control your sexual impulse? It is pathetic. And you need to recognize that it's pathetic and that you are a pathetic man for engaging in it. And you need to stop. Period. You need to stop doing it. Now, people be like, oh, it's easier said than done. No, it actually is. It's that easy. Stop doing it. Stop watching it. Stop looking at women in ways that are unbecoming, and learn discipline. Learn self-control. Learn to master your desires and don't let them master you. And don't be enslaved by this. Like, you have the Spirit of God inside you, don't you? And if you want God for help, if you want the Spirit's help, just ask. And he will help you overcome this. But you got to start by making a decision that you're not going to look at it. You're not going to engage with it. You're not going to support it. And recognize that it emasculates you and weakens your effectiveness as a man for the kingdom. And it hurts your witness. And in some cases, it'll give your enemies power to destroy you, to manipulate you. And you don't want them to have that power. You don't want them to have control over you. You don't want whatever degenerate porn you're looking at right now to come back to haunt you years later, especially if you're somebody that gains notoriety. Now, luckily, fortunately for me, I'm prepared to own everything that I looked at and everything that I've done. I'm prepared to own it. And that's actually a sign of being repentant is if somebody came to me and they're like, Ryan, you watch it. Yeah, I did. And it was degenerate and disgusting. I was less of a man for doing so. And I brought shame on God, my family, the church. Like, I own that. I'm not making excuses for it. I'm not ignoring it. I'm not saying it was a good thing. No, I own it. And then I render them powerless because I'm able to own what I've done. But many people aren't. And many people would cripple them because they've looked at some wicked, evil stuff. And yeah. Speaking of wicked and evil, we have Kanye West here and Bianca Censori possibly getting divorced. According to TMZ sources, they already split up. Wow. Shocker. You mean to tell me that Kanye West, the man who is parading his girlfriend around half naked constantly, is getting divorced? You mean that wasn't the recipe for a good marriage? Very weird, but also very unsurprising that this is going to be the case for his marriage. That his marriage is going to end in tragedy. And, biblically, I'm just going to be honest, he should have never remarried to begin with. Technically, that is adultery. Technically, it is. He should have stayed single and tried to reconcile with Kim any way possible. But obviously, this is the world, and the world's going to do what the world's going to do. And, he had another, this marriage was very short-lived, and hopefully, though, this is a sign, maybe, that he's starting to come to his senses and that maybe he'll start to, if he's in another low place, he'll start to press into God and pursue his relationship with Jesus and come home. And I know that's a prayer for a lot of people is that, they're grieved and heartbroken by Kanye West's descent into degeneracy. And hopefully this is an opportunity for him to surround himself with some Christians, some people that support him, and he can get his life back on track because Lord knows this guy needs it. All right. All right. Last piece of news we're going to talk about, and then we're gonna wrap things up. Just because I thought this is a good story. I'm just going to read this headline. I'll give you the backstory. Toyota will no longer sponsor LGBTQ plus parades and enforce DEI policies. So this is what I would call another scalp for Robbie Starbuck, because he recently broke news of all the DEI woke initiatives that Toyota has sponsored, and I covered that recently in a recent video actually. And now they are no longer sponsoring LGBT plus events, and it seems like organization after organization is backing away from this. Even it was pointed out that the Kamala Harris's campaign is backing away from this stuff. So we're seeing retreats, which is good, which means the right is finally starting to learn to wield some cultural power. That is a good thing. And I'm encouraged to see it. I hope he starts flagging more companies, and more companies start to back away from this nonsense, because it's absolutely disgusting that we have companies that don that abomination of a flag and support systemic racism, which is what DEI policies are. It's systemic racism against white people. And it has to stop. And I, for one, am glad that it is. Okay. I think that's going to do it for me. I hope my mic sounded good. I'm going to have to listen to this back, and hopefully it was good. Everything seems good on my end. So we will see. And hopefully the volume was pretty consistent. That was what I was trying for. And the mic placement, much better. I can move without hitting it, which I need to. Again, I'm a very animated guy when I speak. So, all right. I appreciate you guys. If you like this content, please like, share, subscribe, do all of those things. That helps me grow. If you're on Rumble, type RCAM into that search bar. Follow me. Click that notification bell. We go live every Tuesday through Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I appreciate you guys. God bless, and deuces.